Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Your Overseas Home webinar, Navigating Property Purchase and Currency Exchange in Florida. Now, we know that there are two important parts of buying overseas. One is the estate agent part, and the other part is the paying for it part. And so we've got two experts with us today who together will hopefully give you more of an idea of how the whole process works. You can get answers to anything that you need to know, and so in 30 minutes you should be much more expert on buying property in Florida safely. So first up, we've got Garry Walmsley, an estate agent at Buy Orlando, obviously specialising in the Orlando area. Garry, why don't you just introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. My name is Garry Walmsley. I'm a senior global real estate advisor with Global Florida Realty, which is based in Orlando. We also cover Central Florida and the Gulf Coast areas. But I've been here for 20 years now. 25 years actually living, but 20 years in this business, and primarily representing UK or Brits and Canadian buyers, really with their real estate needs in Central Florida. Again, just trying to make sure that first and foremost, like this seminar is to provide people with information, assets and resources that they can then become a little bit more educated in the process. And that's really what we're here for, is to make sure that we provide a seamless service and transaction for anybody that's contemplating a prospective purchase.
Excellent, thank you. And we're also joined by Jake Roscoe, account manager at Smart Currency Exchange. Tell us a little bit about Smart and yourself, Jake.
Hi, thanks, Chris. My name's Jake Roscoe. I work for Smart Currency Exchange. We are specialists in overseas property purchases. So we basically help people with their currency needs when buying property abroad. I'm in a bit of a colder place than Garry is. We're in London at the moment, which, as Chris might know as well, it's been quite cold recently. So, Smart have been going for 20 years, and I've been here for just over a year now. We will help you with all your currency needs, big or small, and we'll hold your hand all the way through the journey.
Fantastic, thank you. Jake, and I am Christopher Nye. I'm editor at Your Overseas Home, and I've been writing about Florida property since 2005 when I was editor of Everything America magazine. But I used to work on a cruise ship, so I used to spend my Saturdays in Miami briefly before getting back on the ship again. So always loved Florida. It's always such a fantastic place, such a warm welcome in every possible way. So thank you for joining us. We've got 30 minutes, so it's going to follow a question and answer format. So I'm going to ask Garry and Jake a whole bunch of questions, and if you've got any questions yourself, do please put them into the questions tab on the right hand side. That'd be really great. Thank you. I will pass those questions over. And of course, if you're watching on demand, do please contact Garry and Jake directly. You can find the details on the website. So thank you. So I guess the first question, it's only I should just ask Garry firstly, can you explain what a realtor is? Because we're not always familiar with the concept.
Okay, so there's obviously some differentials between estate agents and realtors from that perspective, and the biggest thing is licensing. So a realtor is a licensed real estate professional who's a member of the National Association of Realtors, which obviously is the trade organization in the US. Now, while all realtors are real estate agents, not all real estate agents are realtors, and part of that is down to the membership aspect, the additional professional standards that are in place, as well as the specialized training and continuing education. So there is a little bit of a difference there, Chris, from that perspective. But in truth, I'll be honest with you, in 20 years, I've only had two people ask me if I'm a realtor. So I think it's really down to making sure that you are the person, or you have a good relationship with the person that you're working with, But that's probably also because I work primarily with international clients as well. So if someone's looking for a primary residential real estate property or purchase here, they are going to be very, very aware of, obviously, who's a realtor. We all carry licenses. I carry 3 different licenses, one from a national perspective, one from a state, and then actually one from a local perspective. So it's very heavily regulated, which is part of the reason I actually enjoy working in this business.
Okay, fantastic. So what is, in general, what's the market like in Florida at the moment, or in Orlando in particular?
You said we had 30 minutes, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So condensed version.
Buyer's market or seller's market?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's pretty similar to most G7 economies at the present time from that perspective. I don't think there's a massive differential from that. I think that a lot of what we've seen here, and let me give you a little bit of a sort of breakdown between sort of Florida maybe and also Orlando, because there is a slight differential because of the demographics that are purchasing or moving in and out of the area. But if we look at details over the last year, the average price now in Florida is about $570,000, and that encompasses, that's for single family homes or holiday homes, villas, detached properties that typically the Brit would normally go after. The average across Florida for a condo or a flat is around about 451,000, and you can kind of see that that's actually gone up a little bit than where it was a year ago. However, if we kind of move just into the Orlando or the central market, bless you, Jake, then it pretty much runs along lines in terms of what we've seen in terms of the villa aspect of things. But the purchase price for a condominium is significantly less in Orlando. And I think part of that means the fact as well, if you take property prices or condo prices in the likes of Miami, then obviously, those obviously have a much higher tag from that perspective. But in general, I guess sort of short version as to where we are now, lots of opportunities. In Orlando, we are still seeing price points go up. It went up about 2.9% last year, whereas in Florida, it's pretty flat. So we've seen a little bit of the correction that was in place. We saw it drop a little bit last year from that point. And I think ultimately now we've sort of seen the correction from what happened immediately after COVID, when everybody went out and wanted to buy a house. And of course, obviously, mortgage rates were significantly lower than what they are right now. We fully anticipate, again, you guys are seeing it, Canada's seeing it. We fully anticipate that the Fed will obviously drop the rates again next year. Whether or not we'll get another one in December, we'll have to wait and see. But it's not really having an impact in terms of mortgage rates directly at the moment. So not everybody's rushing out to buy a home, and not everybody's out there with the lower rates that they accrued to start with or bought into, actually wanting to give those up and sell a house to then buy it at a higher rate. But there are, I would say, from my perspective, having been here for 25 years, this is an unprecedented inventory of certainly properties viewed for holiday homes that are zoned maybe for short-term rental, that if people are looking to come over 2 to 4 weeks of the year and then offset operational costs with properties that are zoned for that type of use, then there's a tremendous opportunity right now. And we're seeing some great deals and bargains that we're negotiating.
Excellent. Great deals and bargains. That's what we like to hear. Now, could you take us through the process? Just give us a sort of a quick portrait of how it all works.
No, absolutely. Look, it's very similar to what it is in the UK. In truth, it's just probably a little bit more of a condensed version from that point, given the fact that this is more of a second home purchase as opposed to a primary residential for most of the people that are on this call. But ultimately, there'll be a lot of prep work. I'm a great believer in doing the work before the work. And one of the things that, we really want to encourage people to do is to reach out to us directly, do a lot of the prep work first so we can get a lot of the things that are out the way. So, and that incorporates the sort of the selecting of the property aspect of it. But in truth, some of that work behind the work is understanding finances, operational use of what people are looking to, what they're looking for out of the property, whether it's lifestyle or investment. And then we kind of actually reverse engineer a lot of the properties for that way, especially if people are looking for an Airbnb style property, because we want to actually make sure that the numbers actually work and they stack up and there's no surprises afterwards. But once we've selected that property of interest, we ultimately submit an offer, and we have three outcomes. We can either have a yes, a no, maybe, or obviously extended negotiation. Once we get through that point, then we really sort of get to a point whereby we're doing our surveys and our checks. The title company are running bits and pieces on the deed just to make sure everything is obviously as it says it is. And of course, obviously, they won't issue any title insurance unless that is clean and clear. The biggest differential that we see between here and the UK is the closing time. So generally speaking, I'll give you an example. We've just actually closed one that we closed in 14 days. All right. So a couple from the UK, they're actually in the process of moving over here. We needed to find something. They got their visas approved. And we actually went to contract and closed within 14 days. But typically speaking, if someone's purchasing cash, you can allow about 30 days for that. If it's a finance purchase, then it's between sort of 55 to 60 days. And I think the biggest thing that I've seen in comparison to a primary residential purchase, which most people probably on this call are familiar with in the UK, is the chain aspect. So, you might have 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, you might have 13, 15 people on it. Typically here, properties are being purchased for the same type of operational use. So it's really more of a lifestyle asset. Most of the properties that are being purchased that we get involved with, unless someone's moving over here full time, are going to be used for, vacation purposes, and ultimately their second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth homes. We don't see any chains. So again, I think that speeds everything up from that perspective. But that's a very, very quick overview. But if anybody obviously does want a more detailed explanation, then please reach out.
That's really good. And I guess it kind of emphasizes why we buy in America, because it's so efficient. I mean, I do these with other countries, and we did one in Cyprus, and I said, how long does it take to buy? And they said 8 months. It's insane, but things in America, they're so efficient. English speaking, of course, simple and efficient legal processes. So excellent to hear that too.
Just on that point, Chris, I know you mentioned 8 months there. Now, that was obviously in a product that is standing. If it is a pre-construction option, then invariably we have to kind of build that in. So just to clarify and make sure everybody's aware of that, we don't build properties in 2 months here. No. It's a little longer than that, but it's definitely shorter than a lot of countries.
Totally, absolutely fantastic. Now, okay, I'm going to bring in Jake at this point because, okay, so if I come to you and I see a property that I like at $500,000, and then in 2 months later, the pound, as we've seen, to euro has dropped, I'm going to have to pay a lot more. So I'm hoping that Jake and Smart can help me with that conundrum, moving exchange rates. How can you protect me from those?
Yeah, that's exactly what we can help with. So we have a contract type, which is what we call a forward contract, which ties in nicely with overseas property purchases. So just as an example, say you see a rate today or a property that you really like with Garry, you get your offer accepted, and then you like the rate on that day. What you can do is you can lock in that rate, and we can deliver that rate for you on completion. So, for example, today we're trading around about the 126, sterling to US dollar. If you like the look of that rate and you want to fix that rate in, we can do that for you, which basically removes your currency risk between now and the date of your completion, which could be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever that looks like. And just as an example, since the 5th of November, which is when we all know the US election went on, the market has gone down. Sterling to US dollar has gone down 3% since then, and that's just in the space of just over 2 weeks. So that movement in the rate could be the difference of you being able to afford that property or not.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, and I include myself in this. We always push everything to the nth degree. So if we were buying that £500,000 property and we'd agreed to buy it at the end of October, and now we've got to find an extra my maths isn't an extra 15,000 quid. That's going to be difficult, perhaps. So I can certainly get. Okay, just tell me as we're. Let's talk about buying costs. So Garry, what should we, if we're looking for that 500,000? I don't know why I'm saying 500,000. I mean, 250,000 is probably more my level. But what should we be adding on as buying costs?
Well, I mean, typically, if you're looking from a cash perspective, right now it's going to range probably around about sort of 4%, something of that sort of nature, and that incorporates representation for the buyer. As you're probably aware, Chris, as well, there was obviously, some jurisdictions and some results that came through from the NAR judicial case that was in August 17th. So there's been a lot of new enactments from that perspective. And now invariably every buyer has to be represented by their own representative, whereas previously a lot of them could have been on a transactional basis. So rates now, generally speaking, you're probably looking around about anything between about 4 to 8%. Again, the 8% incorporates obviously mortgage if you're looking at it from a finance perspective. It might be from additional fees that you have to pay. It might be a foreign national premium or whatever it may be. But ultimately, the key thing I think here is to make sure that whoever is actually looking at a purchase, make sure that you do your due diligence first and you are aware of these. Jake's spoken about the forward contract from that point. That's something that we realize ultimately, and we're aware of. We bring it up to our clients really very, very much at the beginning. We build those costs in to the journey that we're going to take from that point. And ultimately, that forward contract that Jake's talking about, that can pretty much pay for your closing costs. All right. So as opposed to, purchasing from a bank, which a lot of people do. I know we talk about this on a regular thing, but most people aren't familiar with purchasing properties overseas. They're used to purchasing properties in their own country, and it's pretty easy because a pound's a pound. But when you're transferring into different international currencies, there is a fluctuation there. So you can actually make money out of money, but at the same time, it can also cost you a lot if you don't do your due diligence and work with the right partners.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So. In terms of the cost of the currency, what do you charge fees, Jake, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the way that we make our money is we charge a small percentage on what we call the interbank rate. So the interbank rate is the rate that the market trades at, which is where all the nice big banks are buying currency for. So that's not the rate that individuals like ourselves will be able to obtain. So long story short, we buy the currency at a certain price and we sell it to individuals at a different price, and we charge a small percentage, which is all built into the price that you pay. So there's no hidden costs or anything like that. We don't charge to set up an account either. So it is literally when you trade.
And I assume I'm getting a better rate than I'm going to get at my high street bank if I can find a bank on the high street.
Yeah, that's correct. So there's not too many banks on the high street anymore. Banks usually charge anywhere between 4 and 5%. We charge a lot less than that. But also, it's not just about rate, like Garry was saying. It's about educating yourself. It's about being diligent, understanding your options. So, for example, a forward contract, banks don't tend to offer these things because they've got a lot of other things to worry about. Currency is our bread and butter. That's all we do. And we, like I said before, we specialize in overseas property purchases. So we understand the buying journey. We understand what you need, when you need it. And we can tie into a resale property or an off-plan property. You need, a bit of guidance on how to do that and when's the best moment to buy your currency. Then we can help with that. So you will get a personal account manager when you sign up with Smart Currency, and they're just a phone call away. If you want to pick up the phone and have a chat with one of the experts, they can give you a good indication of what they think might be happening. Obviously, we don't know where the markets are going to go, but they can give you a bit of help with doing so and what the best options are for you and your budget, basically.
And you're not going to get that from an online service like Wise or Revolut, obviously?
No. Revolut and Wise, you're usually either talking to a robot or you do have to do things online by yourself. So therefore, if anything, God forbid, did happen, or you were worried about where your money's going to be going or how long it's going to take to get there, there's no one really on the other side of the phone that you can just pick up the phone to and discuss those things with, which, we value ourselves on service as well. So, yeah.
Okay, now, so if I'm coming out to Florida on a viewing trip, any tips on how I should organise that, Garry? Should I how long should I come for? How many viewings can I do a day? And I suppose most importantly, when should I contact you? Presumably, I don't say, "Hey, I'm on my way. I'm at the airport." I need to contact you well in advance.
Well, Chris, I've actually had people call me from the airport, or actually when they're here, and just say I'm actually free tomorrow morning. But in truth, like I've said, there's a lot of prep before the prep. It's a little different, I think, as well with the US, as opposed to maybe if someone's visiting Portugal or Spain or France or whatever, where they can just pop down for the weekend. A lot of the time we find that people do come out here. They are looking to combine a vacation or a holiday with actually a viewing trip from that perspective. Mm-hmm. So what I would suggest is, one, contact us as far out as you can and give us obviously dates that you're considering. Secondly, please don't come out at the sort of peak times like Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year. Orlando's a really, really busy place. I mean, 74 million people visited here last year. So it is one of the most visited destinations in the world, and also is normally in the top 3 at all the peak times for US holidays. So don't come out at that point in time, because ultimately it's very, very difficult for us to get into the properties a lot of the time of that choice, because they are being rented. In terms of how you should structure it, we actually like to get involved with you, understanding a lot beforehand, and a lot of the things like I talked about selecting the property of interest, we'll have actually done prior to you coming out. We might have actually identified the location, the size of the property, the affordable budget, what properties are of interest for your operational use, and we've already narrowed that down. Obviously now we've got a lot of online tools that people can look at. We can do online viewings as well without you being here, so we can actually sort of start to look at properties that are of interest, aren't of interest, and actually write those out. But when you're here, let us spend a few days together. You will obviously have to sign now a buyer broker's agreement in order to even go and view a house, unless it's an open house. Okay. So that's definitely changed. But the key thing is work with someone that actually, one, is actually in the location and based in the location of interest. Don't try and actually purchase a property in a different country with someone based in another country. That doesn't work. So the key thing is work with the local expert, a specialist, not a generalist. I don't encourage people to sort of just jump onto realtor.com or Zillow.com and pick out anybody that's just on there with a realtor license, because they don't always know or specialize in international business and understand that aspect of it. I would love to obviously to work with you, but at the same time, if it's not me, please do your research, interview the agents that you're working with, and stick to one. You only need one here from that perspective, because we do have access to all of the available property that's available for sale here.
And what are the issues with international buyers?
I think it's just familiarity, Chris, to be honest with you. Obviously we're very much aware in terms of what happens on the other side of the border, or the other side of the water, should we say, from that perspective. So we have knowledge of what happens there and what people are familiar with. And as much as, you touched on it earlier, as much as we speak English, there is a slight differential in terms of terminology and verbiage that's used. But the key thing is for me, I work specifically with Brits and Canadians, and that's what I deal with every day. All right. So I'm aware of the complexities. I know how to set up utilities. We will obviously talk about the taxation aspect, the setting up of the ITINs. How do you need to operate your property? Introduce you to professional partners like Smart and for taxation and property management. So we understand actually the questions that are involved. We're not here to sell a house. We are here to either, improve someone's lifestyle or increase their wealth. That's it. All right. So two sections that we work on. We're not here just to sell a house to someone.
Okay. what would you say is what's most in terms of those things, lifestyle investment? What's most popular at the moment, or a bit of both?
It's a mix. It's a mix. I'll be honest with you. Since I started this business, it used to all just be, let's buy a second home, all right, and that used to be literally just a second home. No one was interested in terms of any type of rental revenue or income that they could generate from a property. That's all changed. The first thing that we get asked now is, how much can I generate from this property?
Sure.
All right. So Airbnb has raised the awareness, and obviously a lot of online information that's out there. Not all good, I'll be honest with you, but we get quite a mix. And bearing in mind, we're not just down the road. All right, it's not a 2-hour flight like it would be to the Mediterranean. People are coming out here probably for 2 to 4 weeks of time from that perspective, or mixed holidays. But it's primarily a lifestyle asset. Although we've started to see, I'm a great data analyst from that perspective. We've actually seen quite a lot of growth now in terms of residential investment property, that Brits are purchasing. So it's actually gone up from 4% to 8% in the last year, which is quite significant in terms of that budget that Brits are spending. And a lot of that, I think, is down to the fact that people are pulling money out of Mediterranean countries or the UK. And obviously with the latest budget and everything else from that perspective, we're now starting to see opportunities arise over here for residential real estate investment.
Okay, excellent. Now, one thing I've been enjoying looking at Florida properties is it's not, people are really getting into the rental thing, aren't they? So some of these properties, when you start looking at them, they've created their own little Disney World inside them. They're themed properties. Some look like castles inside. So people are really taking a business decision, aren't they? It's not just, we've got a property, but we'll rent it out for a couple of weeks. A lot of people are really getting into the whole business side, and you can do that even as an international buyer.
Absolutely. I mean, Florida welcomes international buyers. I mean, tourism was obviously a major industry and still is. But obviously there are, as opposed to 2008 when we had the crash, there's a lot of other industries that have now moved into Central Florida. But you're absolutely right. I mean, Airbnb raised the awareness of this type of property. It's a different category of product now. We used to call them short-term vacation rentals. Everybody now calls them an Airbnb. But the key thing is to again do your due diligence. Most people, from what I see from studying many years of British buyers, 58% of buyers actually purchase a villa. Okay, it's an aspirational product for most Brits that are coming out here. What they want to do as well, and the average usage time is less than 4 weeks. So we encourage everybody to look at this actually as a business decision. So it is an investment, all right? There's very few people now, especially with the increase in living costs, that can purchase a property, use it for 4 weeks, and then just carry it for the other 11 months. Or why would you, when you have 74 million people that you can target? And we've seen that with the Canadians, where we used to have those snowbirds go down, down to the Gulf Coast, spend sort of 3 or 4 months. A lot of those are moving inland now because the operational costs and living costs have increased, and they're not able to offset that operational aspect. So that's certainly what we see here. It's a mix, to be honest with you. But the demographic age has also dropped as well. So we're actually seeing a lot of people now, certainly the younger generations, buy their second homes first. And what I mean by that is that they can't buy in their local markets. So they're actually investing in assets in other countries. Okay.
And if one is seeing it as a business, Jake, I guess you can help with the moving the currency backwards and forwards. You're not just there for the property purchase. You can also help if it's a business proposition.
Yeah. So we're there for every payment that you need, basically. So if you have a reservation that you need to pay for the property, then obviously a balance or a stage payment if you're paying for a new build or off plan, should I say. And then if you have a pension from the UK, for example, that you want to change to dollars, we can set up what we call a regular payment plan, which basically fix your rate for 12 months, so you know exactly how many dollars you're getting. We can also do that for mortgage payments as well. If you are getting a mortgage in the US and you're paying for it with sterling, for example, we can set up a regular payment plan for that as well. So we can be there we like to say, try and get in touch with us before your viewing trip, so you really understand, what you're, like Gary was saying before, do your due diligence, prep before the prep. The more you're prepped, the better options you have, and the more, more money we can save you, really, a better service we can have. So before the viewing trip, get in touch with us. We have a currency planning team here which can put your full budget together for you, so you can understand exactly how much you can spend in dollars when you're going over there, and how much you can't afford, basically, which is quite important. And then, we hold your hand all the way through to the end, really, if you want us to. Which we've got clients. We've been around for 20 years. We've got clients that have bought with us, done a lot of small payments with us, and now, they've got to a point where they're selling a property in France or the US, and now they're repatriating their funds back to the UK with us. So we've had customers on our books for years.
Okay. Now, clearly, half an hour wasn't enough for this discussion. So I wonder if we can just stay for 5 minutes, so I can just ask a few questions that I had. Florida. Firstly, I hope you're okay after the hurricane. What should we know about? I mean, it was very worrying. I'm glad that the second one wasn't as bad as we expected, but it was very worrying. What should we know about if we're buying property there? Should we, for example, get a survey done?
Yeah, I mean, we would incorporate a survey. We call that a home inspection here, but we typically would actually have a survey done on every property. It's required anyway if you're purchasing with a mortgage. You don't necessarily have to have it if you're purchasing cash, but it's something that we build into all the contracts that we have. So there really isn't an issue from that perspective. And of course, that also gives us an out, Chris, as well. If subsequently we find something on that survey that we don't like, the deposit or escrow that we've placed on the property, that is a refundable deposit up until that point in time. So we have to go through that point before we get to a point, if it's cash, once we go through the inspection, we've agreed it, or the survey, then that deposit or escrow is non-refundable at that point in time. But ultimately on the next stage, if it's a mortgage, then we have to actually be approved for the mortgage before it becomes non-refundable. So there are protections, like you said earlier on. There's a lot of protections there for the buyer, and that's actually what we do. We're here to protect the buyer at every stage of the process. And just touching on your, I appreciate the kind words there in terms of the hurricanes. We were very blessed in Central Florida for sure. But again, that's also built into an insurance policy. So there is a hurricane excess that's built into every insurance policy. And again, if it's a mortgage option, you have to have insurance on it. If it's cash, you do have the option. But, I can't honestly say that I've ever had anybody that's never taken out insurance on an asset.
Okay. In terms of mortgages, can British people get mortgages quite easily in Florida? And what kind of rates are we what kind of loan to value are we talking about?
Generally speaking, we're looking around about 70% loan to value right now. There's a couple out there that I've seen that are sort of 75%, but for the most part, you're looking generally in the region of about 70%. Rates obviously are at this point are not low. All right, they really are in the sort of the upper sixes, low sevens, unless you're working maybe with a developer that's actually starting to buy down that rate from that perspective. But that's typically in a new build product, whereby they're actually sort of buying down that rate, but effectively that's being built into the transaction as well.
Okay, and it's my last question really, but so if I'm looking to rent out a property, can you advise me on the areas? I suppose my great fear was that I would buy a property and then I wouldn't be able to rent it out. Is there any chance that could happen?
There is, if you don't work with the right people. All right.
Right.
The key thing really here is if you are looking for something that you are looking to rent out, work with someone that's actually more investment based, or someone, a company like us from that perspective, whereby that's what we specialize in. To make it easier, if someone is looking to do that, if someone's looking for an Airbnb style property, we have a buyer's guide that we created. It's not your typical home buyer's guide from that perspective. It's designed, it's a blueprint that's actually aimed at people that want to create and set up an Airbnb business of their own in Orlando. We kind of came up with a very straightforward name. It's called OrlandoBuyersGuide.com. So very easy to remember. You can access that through that URL, or you can actually go to my website, which is myname.com, not myname.com, but GarryWalmsley.com. Trust me, I've had a few people actually try, myname.com, but you can actually go through there. It's a very, very comprehensive, detailed blueprint. It talks about everything from how we get started, the services that we provide, places that you should look at, communities that we recommend, management companies, taxation, ITIN. There's a wealth of information in there, Chris. So please, have anybody reach out to that.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I will call a halt there because otherwise I could keep on asking questions. But I would urge anyone watching live or on demand to check out the website, Your Overseas Home. It's quite hard to find our wonderful content, but we will be having lots more content, including interviews with Garry about where to buy in the Orlando area and all your questions answered. So we look forward to working with you over the next few months on all that content, Garry. And I'd just like to say thank you for all your expertise. And I know I would feel very confident in working with you in Florida. And thank you too, Jake, for your help on the currencies. If anybody would like to contact Garry and Jake, please do so. And you should have contact details with the webinar login. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thanks, Garry.
Bye.
Take care.